Ride through the city like Brennan Schaub. I'm on a mission to get it all. Ride through the city like Brennan Schaub. If you ain't thick, please don't get involved.
And now, Brandon Thick Boy Schaub.
What's up, Thickies? Thickums, Thickers. It is Monday morning, March 7th. On this very special edition of the Schaub Show. Welcome, kiddos. When I say kiddos, really welcome adults, grown men. My crowd's a real wiener fest. We know this. So what's happening, man? Yeah, man. It's, the fight world is popping. As usual, the fight world is popping. Had a great weekend. We had a Calabasas Fight Companion. It was a long time coming. Finally, Josh Barnett and I were able to link up with Matt Mitrione and do a Calabasas Fight Companion for UFC 272. What's interesting is, Barnett's been in the fight game for, 25 years, and him and I have never really crossed paths. We had a bunch of mutual friends, we just know a lot of the same people, but we've never really connected. And he's a LA guy. He lives in Hollywood, so he's not far from me, but we've just never connected. And then Mitrione and him know each other really well. They used to train together. And so I was excited to get him on because I had mentioned to Matt before when Matt was talking about Josh. I was like, oh, dude, he's one of my bucket list guys I'd love to have on. So the War Master came on, and boy, he is... you always have certain expectations of guys, especially fighters or comics or whoever I have on the shows. And I obviously Josh Barnett has been on Rogan, and I talked to Rogan about him. He's like, dude, smart dude, you're going to love him. And so you have these expectations, but he exceeded all that, man. He's just a smart, bad mamma jamma. He's just a smart dude. As tough as all get out. Just a legend of the sport, and his knowledge on history and fighting and cars. He's a gearhead. And then, he's fantastic, man. Because, if I have Matt on, Matt can talk. Matt's a chatty Cathy. So I never get worried about Matt. You just don't, Josh and I don't know each other. I know, with Rogan, he's he can talk, but, sometimes you get in situations where you book guys, and if you don't know each other or they're not part of the crew, some guys shell up. There's guys who, when the cameras aren't on, they're amazing. You'd be like, oh my God, this guy could make millions of dollars in podcasting and, talking, being an analyst. And then the cameras turn on and just the dynamic's different, or maybe they're in a bad mood. You never know, man. But Josh Barnett was not one of those guys. He freaking saved the day, man. And I'm forever grateful to him. And we'll get him on a flashback fight night in a food truck. That's for damn sure. I could talk to him for days. So imagine a flashback fight night with Josh Barnett. We can't limit it to 3 fights. No. You can't. That has to be you could even just skip food truck, just do a flashback fight night, because he's going to have 6 to 10 fights. I mean, he's fought everybody. You go through the Pride days, all that stuff. What? The Pancreas days. He's just a legend, man. So he brought his whiskey. I know whiskey. I would say I have my blue belt in whiskey and bourbon. He is a straight black belt. The stuff he was talking about, I was like, oh my God, this dude is balls deep in whiskey. And I love that his whiskey, the War Master edition of it, his is different than mine. It's a smoky flavor, but goddamn, is it good. It is good, man. His is selling out, and his is a little different than mine. They do it out of, I think he said, Oxnard, California, which I love when it's distilled and made, in local and in California. And he's crushing it, man. He's just crushing it. The Warbringer, there it is. Yeah, it was nice. It was really, really nice, man. So hopefully that takes off for him. I know it's, crushing it already, but it was good. It was strong. Did you try it, Chin? I feel like you'd like it.
I don't think I tried it, so I'm gonna try it.
Oh, why? You didn't try it? We'll try it on Fire and the Kid.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it's a. If you like which I thought you did, you liked like that smoky.
I like your whiskey, so it's something around that kind of thing.
Yeah, more smooth. Yeah, his is smooth but smoky. It's good. And then cast strength too, so it's strong. But that dude is just a wealth of knowledge. Yeah. I mean, again, I refer to myself as a hype beast gearhead. You know, like I know cars. Any car, I would say 97 and up, your boy knows what's inside out. I know that stuff. Now, can I get in there and fix the headers and shit like Josh Barnett? No. That's not what he can. He'll do that. And when he's talking about gears and, the transmission and the stick shift and all that stuff and switching it out. I mean, Matt thought he was speaking Portuguese. You know what I'm saying? It's just Matt was like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. But it was, that dude knows a thing or two about a lot of things. But it was a fun fight companion. Obviously, completely different than the typical fight companions, with Chris and Brian, which, those guys barely watch the fights. We get
silly.
We're silly. It's just, but that's the plan, man. I like to mix it up. Chris and Brian will be back. I think the next one we're going to try to do is for the big UFC fight night, which they should call it fight day. But, I guess it's night in England. For the big UFC, and I think that's March, what is that? March 19th? March 19th, the Aspinall fight. And that card's pretty stacked. Did they add Till to that card or no?
Let's see.
Volkov Aspinall is the headliner, and Aspinall wins that one. He's gonna jump in the top 5.
Patty
You
Pimblett.
got Patty on that. Arnold Allen, Dan
Hooker.
Hooker. Yeah, dude, look at this card, stacked. Krylov, Paul Craig's great fight. Gunnar Nelson, Silva, great fight, dude. 1 p.m. So that's Saturday afternoon. I know Chris is in. I'm gonna figure out the other guest, but. Yeah, I think, obviously we do the big fight nights for our boy Jack Shore is fighting as well. King the Sting alumni. Yeah, dude, it's a really good card. And it's the first big card in England in a hot second. So something to celebrate. I think the poster our boy Ruben's going to make can be pretty filthy. English inspired. Could be really dope. But those fight nights campaigns are fun to do because then, people don't have to pay $80. You can turn the TV on, record it, listen to us be dummies, and do your thing. So I like doing not just for the huge pay-per-views. I really do. But yeah, the companion, obviously more fight heavy, a little more X's and O's as far as the fight game. But it was great, man. The card was just okay, wasn't it? It was just okay. Didn't blow your hair back. It was good. It was good. It was good. It's kind of what I expected. Obviously, Fazeev, getting COVID hurt the card a little bit. Makhachev not stepping up, man, is the UFC. When you don't help them out, man, they're going to discipline you. And, I guess the discipline for him is you have to fight Dariush now, which isn't terrible discipline. And, I do think he beats Dariush, but, it was a quality card. The main issue I have, our poor boy Brian Kelleher, who fought fucking Umar, is that he's just such a nightmare to fight. Yeah. Dustin Jacoby, he was the first fight. It's so disrespectful. He was the first fight on the early prelims of UFC Fight Pass and on ESPN Plus, and I watched it. I think this dude's won 6 in a row at light heavyweight, and light heavyweight's not that deep, dude. How is he not ranked? Look at this kid. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins in a row, 1 draw. He's a monster, man. And then, so he won, I'll count this as a UFC fight. He won in the Contender Series, Dana White's Contender Series. That's how he got in the UFC. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights in a row. And he had 1 draw split. How's it? And you look at the light heavyweight roster, it's not that deep, dude. How's he not in there? I mean, there's some really good guys up there. Yeah, there's some really good guys. You tell me he doesn't beat Johnny Walker? I'll bet anybody, any amount of money you want right now, Jacoby starches Johnny Walker at number 12. Starches him. Brian Spann be a good fight. Jimmy Crute, Jamal Hill, obviously he's on the come up. I would love to see Jacoby versus Ozdemir. He's right there. Technical, striking too. Dude, throw him in there with anybody you want. Anybody you want. I'm telling you, man. Thiago Santos has his hands full with Jacoby. How that guy's not ranked in the top 15 is insane. Anybody who makes those rankings, in what world do you not think Jacoby went Starch Johnny Walker. In what world are you living in? You have that guy at 12. Based off previous hype, get the hell out of here. Drives me nuts, dude. But back to the card, it's so disrespectful. The guy's won before that 5 in a row. You got him kicking off the card on UFC Fight Pass, which nobody sees. You know what I'm saying? So Tim Elliott gets it done. You were upset that your girl Jan lost. Marina Rodriguez Jan.
Yeah, I thought that was not a robbery, but she definitely won. Mm-hmm.
And then with the main card, it kicked off with your boy Sergey and Greg Hardy. You know, that was Hardy's last fight on his UFC contract. He's lost a good, I think, 3 in a row now. He's been finished. He just, you know, he doesn't look like he was in the best of shape coming into the fight. You know, I know that 265 is tough for him to make as well. He hasn't exactly blown your hair back with the competition. You know, lost to Tibera, which is a tough fight for him. Taito Avasa, clearly a very tough fight for him. And then lost to Sergey. You know, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I really don't. It was a fun experiment. I know the UFC took some heat signing a guy with his, you know, the baggage that came with this. I do believe in redemption. It's a little tough when it comes to domestic violence. Obviously, I don't know the exact details of all that. But if the UFC didn't take a chance, somebody else would. So I get the experiment. But I think we've seen his ceiling, unfortunately. The ground game, again, there's not enough hours in the day, no matter how hard he works at jiu-jitsu and wrestling, to make up for that lost time at his age. So the blueprint to beat him is kind of out. And I don't see him winning a ton of fights. So obviously people tune in to watch him fight. I would assume, love him or hate him, you're going to tune in to watch him fight. And if you're a Greg Hardy hater, which he has a ton, rightfully so, right? With his background, I get it. I said this on the Companion. You talk to Din Thomas or anybody who works with Greg Hardy, and they're just like, man, he just trains his ass off, comes in for work. You know, he's a sponge. He's trying to get better, man. And unfortunately, the UFC just isn't the place to try and pick up that skill set. This is what happens. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But if you get to the UFC and you don't have the background and you don't have the experience, the UFC is not the place to get that experience, because you're getting the experience, but you're losing. And the UFC just can't put up with it. They just can't. So I'm curious what they do with him. You know, he did them a solid fight, taking that Volkov fight. You know, I don't know what they do with him. You look at the ceiling. I just don't know who's he going to beat. The lower level guys he's going to beat. But, you know, when you've lost 4 out of 6 fights, and this isn't a knock on him, it's just reality. Fighting's very black and white, you know. But, you know, in the NFL, if you're a starting quarterback and you throw, you know, 6 out of 8 passes or interceptions, you're not playing football at the highest level anymore. You're just not. So for the UFC, you lose 6 out of 4 fights, and you're also, you know, Taito Avasa, you know, top guy, Volkov, top guy. Other than that, man, it's, you know, you're not, you know, these guys aren't blowing anybody's hair back. You're not beating or even competing with world champions, you know. So, you know, the UFC does have a standard, and I think we've seen his ceiling. I think it was a fun experiment. I enjoyed it. I enjoy when Greg Hardy's fighting. But I think as a business, you got to let him go and see what he wants to do. It's just it's a double-edged sword, because at his age and with his athletic ability, you know, it's not like he's going to go to a regional circuit and get all the experience and then come to the UFC at 40 years old. So, you know, it was a fun experiment. This is typically how it's going to work out for guys, man. If you don't have the background and you're fighting at the highest level, the UFC is not where you want to gain experience. It's going to be such a short-lived career. It just is. Kevin Holland, stoked for him. Went back to welterweight after a few losses at middleweight. Pretty loosey-goosey still, right? Not the most disciplined dude. Got in a little bit of trouble with Alex Oliveira, the Brazilian cowboy. You know, he did get his back in the end of the round, but he gave a thumbs up. Barnett and I spoke about this on the Fight Companion, is I love his antics inside the octagon. It seems natural, seems organic. It doesn't seem preconceived. He doesn't go in there like, oh, I'm going to do this. It just seems like that's his personality. And I fucks with it. I think it's pretty dope, man. So I'm glad Kevin Holland got a win, and I'm sure that was such a relief after all the pressure and switching camps and, you know, training with DC and trying to get better. So he's a big welterweight. I think you do a lot of damage there. So I was excited to see him get a win because I can't imagine the pressure he was under. For Bryce Mitchell and Edson Barboza, you know, Bryce Mitchell's 15-1 now. I think he's undefeated in the UFC. Is that right, Chin? Pretty sure.
Undefeated in the
he's
UFC.
Undefeated in the UFC. His one loss was outside the UFC. Mm-hmm. You know, he's the closest thing we have to a Khabib who's American as far as what he did to Edson Barboza. Now, was it as dominant of a performance what Khabib did? I know, you know, the commentating team compared it to Khabib. No, you're also talking about an older, less motivated, less in his prime, Edson Barboza. But still, for Bryce Mitchell it's his first big step up in competition to absolutely dominate, you know, 30-25, 30-26, 30-27. Come on, whoever that judge is. I'm cool with 30-26. 30-25 is an absolute freaking beatdown. You know, he's made me in trouble the first 60 seconds of the fight, you know, with the leg kicks. And outside that, he just completely dominated him. Obviously, Bryce Mitchell's been in the news going into this fight. I think he was on Ariel's show talking about, you know, vaccines and the government, stuff like that. I mean, the people who are upset, or what you guys want to get on there and just, you know, not talk about how he feels or stuff that he's into. You'd rather him just be the cookie cutter guy who, you know, it's a tough camp. You know, I've been training hard. Hopefully I can get this win. Like, I hate that shit. And that's also personalities like Bryce Mitchell is one of the reasons why mixed martial arts, especially the UFC, blew up and skipped all these other major leagues because you have personalities like Bryce Mitchell. If Bryce Mitchell's in the NBA or NFL or NHL, dude, they're going to suppress all this. What's great about the UFC and Dana White, like, do your thing, dude. Do your thing. Like think about it, Strickland too. I'm sure, like, do your thing, but also
get up a little.
Don't do your thing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can, but I'm sure they're not saying, hey, we're not going to put you in main events if you keep talking like this. Dan's like, do your thing, dog. You know? So, you know, the fans that want to harp on Bryce Mitchell and his political or vaccine beliefs, stuff like that, I mean, just have a little bit of an open mind, man. You know, the guy's a professional cage fighter and one of the best in the world. His next fight's gonna be a big boy too. After you do that to Edson Barboza, it's off to the races now at featherweight. So I'm excited for him. 145 stacked already. It's great to have Bryce Mitchell in there. And if I'm Bryce Mitchell, dude, keep living your truth, man. And I think one thing that will shut up the haters and the naysayers with you is when you get on the mic and go, so this kid made 90 grand, 45 and 45. And he goes, I'm going to donate 45,000, half of my salary to a children's hospital to help these kids out who have no hope. Can't hate on that. You know, no matter what side of the fence you're on politically or with government or conspiracies or vaccines, when a guy goes, I'm going to take half of my salary and give it to sick kids. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then what's dope about Dana, he goes, the kid made 45 and 45. I told him, keep your money. We'll take care of the 45, dude, which is great. And Dana White's taking care of it. And Bryce says, even though he's taking care of it, I still feel like I have to give back.
Yeah, he's still going to give some money to him.
You guys ever been in one of those children's hospitals?
No, I see commercials and I can't watch them.
Bro, when I was in the UFC, they asked me to visit a children's hospital, I think in San Diego. I didn't have kids at the time. Now I definitely can't do it. But at the time, I've always wanted kids. I've always had such a soft spot for kids. I love kids. I've always wanted to be a dad. I wish I had 10 kids. Nothing is more important than kids to me. We go in this hospital and we get there, and before we go in, they go, hey, man, so these kids, you know, you're going to see some shit, man. You're going to see some shit, and these kids, everyone comes in and feels sorry for them, gives them sympathy, and they cry. They want to be treated normal. So don't let any of this get to you. And I was like, I'm fine, man. Yeah, I got this. No problem. When you go in and the kid has 3 months to live, or, you know, he's you're talking about brain cancers, or the kid's missing legs, or the kid. There's one little girl who's in a bubble. She has some rare disease where if she touches any of the outside, like her immune system, she's allergic to everything, and she can't. And she also couldn't feel, so hot, cold. If she's sick, she doesn't have those feelings. The nerves don't do that, so they have to constantly keep her in this bubble wrap, dude. Or the kid, literally, the kid had 3 months to live. I walked in and, dude, I just started crying. Walked out and was like, I can't do this. If I can't cry and like hug them and touch them, I can't do it. I physically couldn't do it. It's impossible. So I'm sure Bryce Mitchell has had some experience or got some perspective going into those. And I advise you guys, if you are a Bryce Mitchell hater, you don't even have to be a Bryce Mitchell hater, but if you want to make the world a better place, go visit one of those children's hospitals, man. It will change your perspective on everything. And you will realize all the shit that this rat race that we care about, and, views and social media and likes and reposts and retweets and haters and fans and all, you realize it doesn't mean shit, dude. There's so much bigger things going on in this world. Like last night I was watching American Idol. I'm watching, I love American Idol. I love it. There's this girl who's, they know what they're doing. They're telling that this girl's from Thiccc, Alabama, Thiccc, Thiccc. Yeah, she's from Thiccc in Alabama, and I think that's where Lionel Richie's from. So he liked her right away. Pretty girl, big girl, thick girl, but cool thick. You know what I'm saying? Not like Lizzo thick, like cool thick, right? And she goes up there, but I knew they were going to try and get me to cry, because she grew up like dirt poor, in foster homes, the whole family, and they grew up in trailer parks. She's the oldest. She was saying how hard it is, and the scrounging for food and just to make ends meet. And her little brother, who turned 16, just was sick of the rat race, took his own life. So that's when she's always had this talent to sing. Dude, she sang a Katy Perry song, the I'm Wide Awake, dude. And Katie was like, she gets, Katie's tearing up, and Katie goes, that's better than what I do. She's like, you made one of my hit songs your song. No one can do that. So, because it's always like such a risk to sing one of their songs in front of them, because obviously they know the song like a motherfucker. Dude, it will give you chills. You're not afraid. You're a sociopath if you can watch that and not feel some type of way. You got to be a goddamn sociopath. She was amazing, man. You want her to go on and get all the riches in the world and take care of her remaining, I think, 3 or 4 brothers and sisters and her mom, Mm-hmm. You're just like, God, I hope that girl makes it, man. You're just like, God, I hope she makes it. But yeah, so all that goes back if you, but the point was, I was watching American Idol, and as I watched American Idol, I was on the internet just looking at Ukraine and Russia stuff, and I'm watching these people and how, obviously for them, it's all, ignorance is bliss, but also for them, it's like, this is their shot, and they're singing, and there's judges, and there's studio, and they're in Nashville and LA, and, there's all this glitz and glamour. I'm just thinking, God, like, I get it. From their perspective, they're trying to get out whatever situation they're in. That's all they know, and that's all they can deal with. But there's literally a war going on right now. Kids are dying. People are dying. They're trying to escape their homeland. It's 2022. And if it's tough not to, when you look at that stuff and, you're watching things, but that's going on. It's just so insane to me, man. It's so insane. And I don't know what you can do. Those anonymous guys, the anonymous crew, you know what I'm talking about? The anonymous crew, the hackers who hacked in the Russian government, and they hack online and shut them down, stuff like that. Those guys are doing the Lord's work. Because obviously Russia's good at that stuff, but not better than our guys. They're just not. And that anonymous group is doing what they can, because really, what can you do? You're talking about a madman and Putin, and it's like, what do you do? And he has nuclear weapons. What do you do? And then you get in too deep, and they're getting pictures of kids dying. It's dark. It's war, dude.
Saw the videos and I just can't watch them. Yeah.
It literally, my girl this morning, she was like, why'd you change? I'm like, I can't start my day with this stuff, because it will literally bleed into everything I do. No pun intended. It will literally bleed in. Hate to say it again. Will bleed into the Schaub show and I firing the kid later and I have my meetings later. It will bleed into all that stuff. It's tough to be funny. It's tough to be creative. It's just when that stuff is going on. And it makes you seem what you're doing is just such bullshit, dude. Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy. But that whole long rant is how great of a person Bryce Mitchell is. Again, think of the salary you make, whatever it is. Everyone's working their ass off. Imagine taking half your salary and donating to sick kids. And you want to hate on Bryce Mitchell? Are you out of your goddamn mind? I don't care, again, what fence you're on, vaccine, anti-vax, Trump, Biden, whatever it is, flat earth, whatever, lizard people, I don't give a shit. For a kid, and he is a kid, for a kid in Bryce Mitchell to say, hey, take half my salary to make these kids, who knows, buy him toys, buy him something. A lot of them aren't coming out of that hospital, man. How you can hate on that kid is insane to me. Insane. Once Bryce did that, dude, he could get on there and hate on white people, hate on fighters who are comics, hate on fighters who became podcasters. He could hate on whatever he wants. He's all good in my book. There's nothing that kid can do to piss me off. Nothing he can do. I'm a huge Bryce Mitchell fan now. And I'm telling you guys, if you're going to hate on him, donate half your salary to a children's hospital. You know what? And if you can't do that, and a lot of us can't, if you can't do that, just go visit a hospital. Bring toys to a children's hospital and make it into 2 rooms. Let me know how it goes for you. Let's take a little break from everything UFC 272 because, man, I'm out there in the streets. In LA, I'm on the streets. I'm at the Hollywood Improv this Wednesday. I'm in Nashville this week, and I see all the bros out there. My crowd's usually a real wiener fest. And a lot of y'all got messed up hair, man. You're just losing your hair. You don't know what to do. Here's some actual facts for you. 2 out of 3 bros will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35. More than 50 million men in the U.S. suffer from male pattern baldness, but now you can do something about it, man. You can. You're self-conscious. You're wearing hats all the time, wearing beanies left and right. Your hair's leaving you. You're looking like George Costanza. You're worried about it. You're recently single. What are you going to do with your hair? My friends at Keeps got you covered, man. Keeps offers a simple, affordable, stress-free way to keep your hair, all right? It's a super easy, convenient virtual doctor you meet with, and the medications are delivered straight to your door every 3 months. You don't have to leave your crib. You have 24/7 care and support. Keeps has a network of expert medical advisors, prescribers, care specialists to support you in making your hair goals a reality. You're looking like Fabio after you get done with Keeps. It's low cost, starts at $10 a month, all right? Keeps has everything you need to keep your hair delivered straight to your door. Discreet little package, proven results. Remember, prevention is key. Keep what you have, fellas. Don't wait. Your hairline's going to fold all the way back. Don't wait. Don't look like Brian Callen. Treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act right now. When it comes to your hair, save more, spend less. If you're ready to take action, prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/Schaub, SCHAUB. That's KEEPS.com/Schaub to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/Schaub to get your first month free. KEEPS.com/Schaub. For you dads out there, one thing we love is a green lawn. My ficuses are popping, son. I have a fortress around my house of green ficuses. The lawn is popping. Nothing is better than a fresh cut lawn, especially if it's nice and green and full of life. My friends, Sunday can help you grow a beautiful lawn without the guesswork or the nasty chemicals that are a nightmare to deal with, not safe for kids or animals. Sunday got you covered, man. Their custom plans include fertilizer and everything you need to make it easy to take care of your lawn so that thing is popping. They got ingredients like seaweed, iron, molasses. You can feel good with the kids and pets being around. All you have to do is visit getsunday.com, put in your address. Their lawn analysis tool does the rest. Then they use a soil and climate data to create a personal nutrient plan delivered to your door when you need it. Just attach the ready-to-use pouch to a garden hose and spray. It takes less than 15 minutes. Best of all, this stuff actually works. I'm telling you, all my freaking ficuses, the lawn is popping. There's nothing better. It looks like Lambeau Field, man. I'm telling you. And Sunday is offering you guys, the dads out there who care about your lawns, they're offering you guys 20% off, all right? Full season plans start at just $129. We're talking about full season plans. $129. You get 20% off at checkout when you visit getsunday.com/Schaub20. That's /Schaub, SCHAUB 2020. That's 20% off your custom plan to have the greenest lawn ever on the block. People are going to be jocking your lawn. Getsunday.com/Schaub20. Moving on to the co-main event. Sorry for that long rant, but shout out to Bryce Mitchell. In the co-main event, it's such a shame we didn't see Fiziev. Renato Moicano, you know, you fly him in for Brazil. I think the fight, they should have changed to 3 rounds because already taking a fight on short notice is such a beast. Not only taking a fight on short notice, but you're doing against Dos Anjos, who's literally from top to bottom as far as record, level of difficulty, as far as his opponents. There's nobody has more impressive resume. As far as if this college football schedule, he's by far had the toughest go in UFC history as top to bottom opponents. He's faced everybody. He's beat most of them, lost to some of them. So for Renato to take the fight in short notice, you're facing Rafael Dos Anjos. There's nothing you can do that he hasn't seen yet. For whatever reason, they kept it at 5 rounds. You know, and it's tough enough to get ready for 3 rounds. But now you're at short notice, 5 rounds. Once that fight was a late replacement, they should have scrapped the 5 rounds. It's very dangerous. Renato's coaches probably after the 3rd could have tossed in the towel. They didn't. Dos Anjos being just a complete gentleman. You won't find a nice guy in the UFC than Dos Anjos. Maybe Wonder Boy. Brandon Moreno's up there. There's first team all nice. And Dos Anjos on that, you know, he's honorable mention at least. He's on that, dude. He's such a good person. I know first fucking hand. Such a good dude. So for him, he could have mollywopped Renato in that 5th round, and he didn't. He didn't. I thought he pulled back in that 5th round. I thought, this kid's had enough. I can't believe he's still here. I thought he pulled back. So for Dos Anjos, you know, you want the experience. I don't even say the experience. The guy doesn't need more experience. He needs more experience. Like I need a freaking STD. He, you know, you want a paycheck, and you know you had this camp, so you want a payoff. But this beating Renato on short notice in a 5-round co-main event does nothing for you as far as moving up in the queue or your next matchup. So I know you got on the mic and said that Fiziev fight's over. And I've thought about this, and originally, even no matter what happened in this fight, I thought he was going to beat Renato 100%. But going into this fight, I thought, I definitely want him to reschedule the Fiziev fight, right? They're supposed to fight originally on a fight night, and it's going to be a main event, 5 rounds. But what the UFC is doing here is pretty clear. What they're doing is it's a huge step up for Fiziev. But for Fiziev, Rafael Fiziev, what they're doing there is they're doing Fiziev a favor. They're not doing Dos Anjos a favor. He's fought everybody, dude. The Fiziev does nothing for Dos Anjos' resume. But what they're trying to do is they think it's a tough matchup for Dos Anjos. They think maybe, you know, he's over the hill, he's long in the tooth. So it's just a launching platform for Fiziev. So when I think about it, I guess Dos Anjos right. He's like, nah, I'm good, man. That fight didn't happen. I don't want to fight him. We're moving on. But originally I was like, definitely make that fight again. But I think for Dos Anjos, it's about moving up towards getting another title shot or getting big money fights. You want those big money fights. So Dos Anjos, who's a brilliant man and phenomenal father, by the way, which is really important here. But Dos Anjos goes, all right, what's going to get me closer to a title shot or what's going to get me paid? And he must have thought about this because he goes, I'd love a Conor fight. At first, I kind of flinched out. Conor, come on, dog. Everybody wants Conor, right? But when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Conor fight makes a lot of sense, depending on what they want to do with Conor. Conor and Rafael Dos Anjos makes a lot of sense. Not a terrible fight for Conor. Great fight for Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos, yeah, a little bit long in the tooth, but still very dangerous. You could definitely, if Conor were to go in there and beat him, definitely a title shot after that, you know? So for Conor, we got to be a little dicey, with the Makhachev fight. If you're a Conor fan, that you do not, trust me, you do not want that. So for Dos Anjos, he said, I want Conor or I want Makhachev. I couldn't agree more with him. It's very rare I agree with guys after post-fight conferences. It's when they do call-outs, I'm like, come on, dude. Because after they shoot for the moon, hopefully to land on the stars. And we'll get to that with Colby Covington. But for Dos Anjos, like, Makhachev makes a lot of sense. He's the next thing. Even though they said he has to fight Dariush next. Mm-hmm. You know how the UFC goes. They say that to try and discipline him. But if they're going to have to give him a fight, Makhachev or Conor makes a lot of sense for him. It really does. Make sense for Dos Anjos. If you remember, they're supposed to fight originally. They're originally slated to fight. So I think if you're in the Conor business, that's a winnable fight. Not an easy fight. I'm not saying that in any facet, but it's winnable. We could see Conor win that fight. So I moved on from the Fiziev fight. I think there's other fights you can do with Fiziev. I think still, has a little bit of ways to go before he fights and catapults a win over Dos Anjos. Do I think you'd beat Dos Anjos? After seeing that Dos Anjos on Saturday night, I don't know. That's a tough fight for Fiziev, man. It's a very tough fight. Very, very tough fight. He could definitely get it done, but I just feel like there's some other stuff Fiziev could do before he just jumps up to Dos Anjos at 6. And for Dos Anjos, I feel like he's done enough in the organization to say, I'm going Fiziev at 11, dude. I'm 6. I just beat him. It's 2 wins in a row. I fought Paul Felder on short notice, and I fought freaking, Renato on a short notice. Like, work with me here. Makhachev's ahead of you. You beat him. You're sure as hell closer to a title shot. Conor, you beat him. Your name's huge, and you get a payday. And he has kids. I'm all for it, man. So hopefully that works out for him. And Dana and the UFC is going to discipline Makhachev. I would have loved to see Makhachev Dos Anjos on that. I'm so surprised Makhachev turned the fight down. So surprised.
I wonder where
doesn't seem like his style.
I wonder because he was out. He was like, "I'm down to go."
Again, no shade on Makhachev at all. Because I heard he was down to go. Even blasts out on social media. It was like, "Hey, put me in." They're like, "Cool, you're in." And then somewhere along the way, I don't know if it's his team or what, but I would be willing to bet Makhachev wasn't like, "I'm not taking that." I don't think so. I don't think so. I bet his team was like, "No, we're gonna wait," and they thought, "Just wait for a title shot. You have nothing to win." But when you play with the UFC and you don't help them out, they're going to discipline you. So now you're going to have to fight him or Dariush next. So we'll see. But shout out to Dos Anjos, man. Just a solid dude. One of the best to ever do it. I hope he gets that Conor fight or the Makhachev fight next. Makhachev fight, very tough fight for him. Obviously, I'm high on Makhachev, as you can tell.
Of course.
And the main event, first time in a UFC pay-per-view where you got two guys who aren't title holders, main eventing a big UFC pay-per-view. And, you had actual, truly bad blood. You're talking about former best friends, former roommates. Colby obviously left ATT for a variety of reasons. One was he says is Jorge Masvidal, and others Dustin Poirier. I thought Jorge, it's just stylistically, he's a bad matchup for him. Colby was just all over him. The 50-44, 50-45 seems more reasonable to me. The 49-46, I can see when, Jorge did wobble him. But, after that, Colby still, for the rest of that round, warm out like a backpack. Colby's wrestling was just too much. Jorge was just on his back foot or constantly defend takedowns, couldn't get off. When Colby did decide to play that, striking game, he was lighting him up, but then, it was a level playing field because Jorge lands one and you saw what happened. So Colby got smart and just wore his ass out. Again, despite what the haters or what, the people think of Colby Covington, he's the best welterweight on the planet, not named Kamaru Usman. That being said, what's next for Colby Covington? He's lost twice to Kamaru. One was kind of close, right? One was kind of close. I heard Kamaru, he was doing a, before the weigh-ins, they have a fighter come out and do a Q&A. And someone said, if Colby wins, would you give him another title shot? And Kamaru goes, would you guys like to see it? Do you think who thinks Colby won that fight when it went to decision? He goes, who thinks Colby won that fight? And the crowd started cheering. He goes, this is why I'd fight him again. I'll make it very clear that I'm way better than Colby Covington. So I don't think it's next. Obviously, Leon Edwards is next. And I know Kamaru Usman says he wants to be active this year. And he also wants a fight with Canelo, which I just don't see happening. He said Canelo's team was kind of into it. I just don't see that happening. I love, and this is what makes Kamaru Usman so great, his mentality. He goes, I believe I can stop him. I don't care what you guys think. If I believe it, I don't care what anybody else says. And that's why, he's the pound for pound GOAT right now. So I would watch Colby and Kamaru Usman fight every Saturday night. I'll do a fight companion every Saturday night if I could for that fight. So I just don't think the UFC is going to do that next. So I think Colby knows that's not next, right? Because obviously he's fighting Leon Edwards. So Colby, being Colby, called out Dustin Poirier. When I first heard the call out, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It makes sense. It's a big fight. For Colby, it's like you're ranked number 2. You're ranked number 1 in the world. You're by far number 1. So you can do one of two things. You can go for the big money fights. Masvidal was a money fight, and there's bad blood there. Dustin Poirier is a money fight. Doesn't make a lot of sense because you beat Dustin Poirier. He's still just the number 1 170er in the world. But you guys have that ATT bad blood. But you just did that. So you could do it again, and the gym rivalry and stuff like that. And I know Dustin Poirier is tells him it's on site. He can't stand him. He goes, I see you. We're going to fight in the streets. I don't want you to get paid off me. But I think, money does talk. So I think UFC could throw some money Dustin Poirier's way. But I'm with Dana, and Dana goes, let's say we make that Dustin Poirier fight. Then what do we do? Dustin Poirier's not at 170. So then what do we, where's it put Colby? I think Colby's like, I'm number 1, dude. I'm not trying to fight guys who are lower. The only argument there, if you're a purist too, you don't like these weird, super money fights, right? You don't like these kind of Super Bowl-ish, super fights. So I think if you look at the division, there's a lot of formidable opponents, man. There's a lot of guys who he hasn't fought. Vicente Luque, Muhammad have to fight. The winner of that, I would assume, is right there. And then again, to me, Colby Covington should fight the winner of Khamzat Gilbert Burns. That's the fight. That's as a pure standpoint, as a if you want to keep the game pure and you want to do what's right, Khamzat is undeniable. And if he were to, I think he fights April 9th on the next pay-per-view. He's the 3rd fight on that main card. If Khamzat were to just absolutely storm through Gilbert Burns, he's going to jump to number 2 in the world. And for Colby, it's going to be tough to ignore him then. And the UFC also realizes that they have something in Khamzat. He's kind of your next coming of a Conor McGregor, Khabib-ish kind of a blend. He's a monster, dude. And I do think he starches Gilbert Burns. I really do. And if he were to do that, I think Colby's going to be forced to take a Khamzat fight. And as good as Colby is, again, listen, nobody jerks off Makhachev and Khamzat more than I do. I'd love to hear the argument that Khamzat's going to lose. I don't know who beats him. Until I see him, in some trouble or somebody stops something. It's been a whirlwind, a Dagestan/Sweden whirlwind of him just dominating guys in every facet of the game. So we haven't seen a chink in his armor, and stylistically, for him to go to 11-2, he's obviously jumping the queue, rightfully so. The talent and hype is there, and he's dominated guys. No one's giving him any issues. But there's tougher matchups besides Gilbert Burns for him. But the UFC realizes they've struck gold with him, and there's something special about Khamzat, man. And boy, is it off to the races! I told you guys this. It's off to the races if he beats Gilbert Burns. And depending on what they want to do with Colby, or if Colby's being difficult, I would be willing to imagine, and again, Kamaru said he wants to be active this year. There's a chance Khamzat beats Gilbert, and then they give him Kamaru. There's a chance for that, but depending how, Kamaru and Leon Edwards goes down, if there's injuries, if who knows, poke in the eye, groin, whatever, it could be forced to have Khamzat versus Colby Covington. But Colby Khamzat, the shit talking in that. And here's the difference: is Colby talks a lot of shit, and I love it. It's his style. I love it. Sometimes he goes a little overboard, especially when he talks about Masvidal being a bad dad and side pieces or girlfriends or whatever. You talk like that to Khamzat? Bro, I don't know if there's enough UFC security to stop him and his boys from roughing you up before the fight, man. You're talking about some real tough dudes, man. I know it sounds like I'm all up on Khamzat's chin strap beard, but so be it, man. Stylistically, I don't know who beats him. I don't. Until I see a chink in his armor, I'm riding the shit out of his hairy nuts. I just am. So for Colby, the Dustin Poirier fight, Dana didn't seem too keen on it. I think Dustin Poirier, he's also looking for super fights. He wants that Nate Diaz fight. So I just don't see it happening for Colby. I think Colby's going to be forced to fight the likes of a Khamzat, the winner of Khamzat, Gilbert Burns, or he's going to have to fight Muhammad Vicente Luque winner. And again, there's a lot of formidable opponents at 170. You don't need to jump around weight classes and clog it up. You don't. There's too much there. As a purist, I'd like to see him fight these other guys. As Colby, as a businessman, you're like, I don't want to fight the winner of Muhammad Vicente Luque. I've been fighting monsters, dude. Like big stars, man. So it's going to be interesting. And then for Jorge Masvidal, I'm not in the same agreement from a lot of MMA experts in the space who are like, for Jorge, he's long in the tooth. But why? Because he lost to Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman? Okay. I know some people say they want to see him fight Nate Diaz next. I'd rather see a Dustin Poirier Nate Diaz. We saw Masvidal Nate Diaz. That does nothing for me. As much as I love Nate Diaz Poirier to me is a funner fight. We've seen how it goes with Masvidal and Nate Diaz. For Masvidal, I think the biggest fight they could make for him is Conor McGregor, because Conor McGregor is super juicy right now. I'm not saying USADA juicy. I'm just saying juicy, thick, in a good way. So I think 55 is out of the question for Conor. He's gotten too big. He's had too much time off. He's put on a lot of muscle. You tell me Jorge Conor doesn't sell gangbusters? And as much as they're paying Masvidal, he's the third highest paid UFC fighter ever. Well, for the UFC, when they make that investment, I don't know how much he's getting paid. It has to be a truckload. You're not fighting the Muhammad and Vicente Luque's of the world. That's not happening anymore. They got to get a return on their investment. The biggest return they can get is Conor McGregor, Masvidal. Makes a lot of sense. So I think, and again, if you're in a Conor McGregor camp and you're a dick rider like I am, the Masvidal's a winnable fight. And also, Masvidal's a natural 155er. So is Conor. Conor didn't fight at 45, right? So Masvidal's small for 170. Nate Diaz, even though he fights at 55, he's a bigger dude. I just think the Masvidal fight makes more sense. Masvidal's not just, some washed up old veteran. He's kind of come into his own. And I think a Masvidal Conor McGregor makes the absolute most sense for a huge pay-per-view. Really do. Sign me up. There's one guy who knows this sport. There's probably a bunch of guys, but there's one guy who I consider a friend who knows Colby better than any of us. And he also knows the sport of mixed martial arts and the UFC better than I do. And that is Chael Sonnen. And so I'm going to sit down and zoom in with a call with Chael Sonnen, who's one of the only guys busier than I am. So as much as I want to get him in here for a food truck and flashback, which we will, the best we can do now with our schedules is a Zoom call. You guys know I usually hate Zoom, but I will take it if it's Chael Sonnen. So let's chat fisticuffs with Chael Sonnen. Before I chat with my brother from a different fighting mother, Chael Sonnen, hey man, let's take a little break. Got to keep these lights on. Got to pay the employees, all right? And online shopping isn't slowing down anytime soon. Is your business ready to keep up with the pace? Are you stressed out? Listen, shipping's a beast. Your boy used to deal with it before I hired a company to deal with it, before I started using ShipStation. With ShipStation, you never have to worry again about shipping. All right, make the switch to a solution that handles all your shipping needs quickly. It's affordable. It's painless. ShipStation is already trusted by over 100,000 e-commerce sellers. Keep track of orders from any sales channel. Easily find the best shipping carrier with deep discounted rates. All right. Save time because you can funnel all your orders in one simple interface, no matter where you're selling. Manage every order, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, your own freaking merch or website, whatever you're trying to sell. You save money. Save your sanity, man. It's a beast out there. No wonder 98% of companies that use ShipStation for a year keep using it for as long as they're in business. It's that freaking good. Ship more in less time with ShipStation. Use my code Schaub, SCHAUB, to get 60-day free trial. That's 2 months free of no hassle, stress-free shipping. Try it out. You got nothing to lose. Just go to ShipStation.com. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage. All right. Type in Schaub, SCHAUB. ShipStation. Make ship happen. Mr. Chael Sonnen, dude, you got to be one of the busiest guys in the world. You're one of the only people that I would do a Zoom call with, but I know how busy you are, man. I've been trying to get you out here for a while. I keep harassing you, so all we got is a Zoom, but I'll take it. I'll take it, sir.
I'll take it. Hey, I'm busy right next to you, and I wish I was with you just so we could have a nice meal because you're always good at providing those, and I'm coming off of a Pizza Hut stuffed crust. I got to tell you, 2 thumbs down. The commercial looked great. I want my $20 back.
I mean, that's what you get for buying Pizza Hut, Chael. You make too much money. You're too busy to eat Pizza Hut, man. We've moved on from Pizza Hut, dude.
So what's up, man? Did you watch the fights this weekend? Did you see this? Was this the lightest pay-per-view of all time?
I love you. You know what? I did a Calabasas Fight Companion show with Josh Barnett and Matt Mitrione, and Josh Barnett had nothing but great things to say about you. He was saying how he wishes you were there with us, and I couldn't agree more. We watched the fights. Yeah, you know, it's not a pay-per-view card that's going to blow your hair back. One of the reasons I want to talk to you, obviously you're very close with Colby, and my thing going to this fight, the fight went how I thought it was going to go. You know, I think we both work with DraftKings, and they always ask me to make picks and stuff like that. And I told people, I said, this fight's a little different just because these guys know each other so well. They've trained together. They live together. When 2 friends are fighting, kind of everything else goes out the window if they know each other that well. But it was like it didn't matter what Masvidal did. Colby was just too much for him, man. Just way too much.
And Brennan, I would love if somebody studied this, but anytime 2 guys know each other, and it's not just fighting, it could be when Tom Brady leaves the Patriots, goes to the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers travel back to New England. Okay, we know each other, but what that means, it flips a switch psychologically inside of every athlete. Defensive. I know what he likes to do. I'm going to know how to block. I'm going to see his setups. I'll know when to get out of the way. It's a defensive mindset. And in this sport of ours of MMA, it's about aggression. It's about attacking. And anytime 2 guys know each other, it ends up being a little bit dull. It just does. I think Colby Covington, in the very first round of that very first takedown attempt, was met with more resistance than he was expecting. Because Colby's output in the first 10 to 12 minutes was the lowest in the history of Colby's career. But I think he got a respect for Masvidal. I think he felt real quick, okay, this guy knows what I like to do. Oh, by the way, he's elbowing me in the head. Oh, by the way, he's not a 155-pounder anymore. And I kind of got a sense, even if it's bad for Colby at the beginning, he's gonna pick it up as he gets closer to the finish line. He's gonna put his foot down a little bit more. That's what it looked like happened. And I'm not sure both guys didn't do what they said they were gonna do. Colby said, "I'm gonna go up there and beat Masvidal," and he did. I never heard Masvidal say that once. Masvidal said, "I'm going to hit him. I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to expose him." Masvidal, in the build-up to this fight, never once said he was going to beat him. I don't think that's what it was about for George. George wanted to get locked in there regardless of the embarrassment for the way. He wanted to hit that guy in the face. I think they both left with what they wanted.
I think so. The fight was a little bit of a letdown. Yeah, is that fair to say? Also, going back to guys fighting each other that know each other, have you fought a training partner throughout the years? Because I used to train with Andre Arlovsky all the time, and then the UFC called us to fight each other. Man, I'm talking, we sparred rounds and rounds and rounds throughout my training and throughout my career at Greg Jackson's. And when we fought each other, he knew what my best tools were. I knew what his best tools. I knew his takedowns. I knew, what he was really good at, what he was bad at. And it was a boring fight. It was just a bad fight. We were both tentative. Nobody really let their hands go. I would take him down. It wasn't a fun fight. So that's why I said, if you're going to bet on this, obviously Colby is the favorite for a reason, but it wasn't a great fight, man. It just wasn't. I think for Colby, a finish would have been great, but he's done enough he's in a weird spot now. Like, what would you say I don't want to skip past. I'm assuming you fought training partners before we go to what's next for Colby. Yeah.
Well, to answer the training partner question, yes, I've had to compete with guys I trained with, but that was all the way back in college. I would have a roommate where we would do our homework together. We would ride to class together. We're in the same weight class. Brendan, we would have to go into the restroom, shake hands and have a wrestle off, then get in the same and drive home together. One of us devastated, one of us moving on. It was just very weird. The biggest thing that I can tell you is that's where the most pressure is. And guys like you and I always tell the audience who has the pressure, but we don't always take time to explain to the audience why that matters. Pressure creates a chemical release that creates a fatigue. Yes. Whoever is feeling more pressure, whoever's more nervous and tied to an emotion, any emotion, is going to get tired a little bit faster. That's why guys like you and I try to identify who it is and try to imagine what's on somebody's shoulders. So I do think that explains a little bit of the output. And when you talk about where does Colby go from here, Colby's doing everything right, Brendan. In the last 1 week, and I'm defining a week by 5 days, in the last 5 days, he has said, I am the number one contender and I have proven it. He's right. He is the only guy ranked number one in the whole sport that doesn't get a fight for the championship. He's in a unique spot. He already did twice against the same guy. History of the sport says we don't go to number 3 if the outcomes of 1 and 2 weren't split. So what does he do? He comes up with an idea. He goes to a press conference, says, I'm going to take this golden ticket. I'm going to cash it in against Adesanya. Dana White quite literally laughed. Okay, fine. Colby didn't get that one, so next time he's got a microphone in his hand, he goes after Dustin Poirier. Now, Dustin Poirier is not a 170-pounder, but if you do look at what Colby did, he called out Kamaru Usman, which he couldn't get. He called out Adesanya, which he got laughed at. He called out Dustin Poirier, who's not in the division. Those are 3 hammers. The one thing those 3 guys have in common is world championship belts. Colby is not asking for something easy. He just realizes I don't get what every other number one contender gets. I don't get the title shot. So give me else something big. And the one takeaway that I did get from Colby going in 3 vastly different directions, his own weight class, a weight class down, a weight class up, is that he sees what you and I are talking about. He sees he's in a unique spot. He's trying to make the best he can with it, but everybody's telling him he's wrong. He can't be wrong nonstop. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Colby's just waiting for something to come back. And when you want to know who called Colby Covington out between those 3 weight classes, nobody. Agreed. Brendan, they don't want to fight the guy. It means you're going to get a main event. It means you're going to get a sold-out arena. It means you're going to get a lot of really great things. They still don't want him.
Yeah, I think for Colby, he's in a tough spot. Again, I would watch Kamaru and Colby fight every Saturday. I'd be happy with that. Take my $80. I love that fight. I think, Colby could make some changes, maybe, get a win here or there against Kamaru, but Colby's your reigning champion. If he was just born 5 years before or 5 years later, he's the best 170 on the planet, or not named Kamaru Usman. So for Colby, he shoots for the moon, hoping to land on the stars. Obviously, the Izzy fight's not happening. I like his call outs. I'm a huge fan of Colby. I know you are too. You're very close with him, but the Dustin Poirier, and you could see even Dana goes, what are we going to do with that? He's not even a true 170er. You win that fight. You're still number one. I think as a purist, and where he's going to get some kind of backlash there's some affordable, I was talking about before he came on, there's some really good 170ers coming up. A guy who I think Colby's going to have to address very soon is Khamzat. I think Khamzat is the next big thing, and I do see maybe the UFC forcing Colby's hand to take that fight if he's going to stay at 170.
And see, I think he's going to have to get creative too. When you have the number one guy, and the one thing that Usman versus Covington Part 2 really did show us is that we found the right 2 guys. There's a bit of a separation. Now, I am also a little bit drunk on the Khamzat Chimaev. I think that the excitement of him. I got to see him for the first time. I happened to be at the PI. I was doing something totally unrelated. He was upstairs. I went and watched a workout. He was working out with Latifi. I was invited to come back the next day for sparring with Latifi, Chimaev, Gustafsson, and Till. I was planning to go, and Brennan, I was going to take a camera. I even asked them, can I film this? They said yes, and I got ESPN called me, so I ended up not getting to do that. But the rumors are true. The guy's as good as all these practice rooms stories that keep on coming out. The other side of the coin, I've always wondered on Chimaev why he's going after 170. If all things are equal and he makes it to a title fight, you ultimately just have to ask yourself, is he more likely to beat Adesanya with his skills, or is he more likely to beat Usman with his skills? He told me, Chael, I've heard you say that before, but I don't weigh 185. I always gave up weight. He said the heaviest that I ever have been in my life is 181 pounds. So for right now, he is a 70-pounder. I know he's got big goals in this champ thing. Lots of guys do, but right now he still does that smoke. Dana gave us one clue on Chimaev. And the last time Dana spoke about Chimaev, he said he's 4 wins away from being considered for a world title fight. Dana now recently came out Saturday post-fight press conference and said, I believe Chimaev versus Burns is a number 1 contenders fight. Now, all of this that I'm giving you is to answer your question in terms of what does Colby do, because I agree with you. I think if you beat Burns, you're probably fighting for a belt. I think if you beat Chimaev or if you beat Colby, you're probably going to be going and fighting for a belt. I know Luque and Belal Muhammad will have their own thing to say about that, but the point is everybody's busy. That's my only point. Everybody's tied up. And we will do rematches when it's for championships. We don't usually do that for contenders matches. So Colby, who really has ran through a division successfully, not only not losing fights, he's not even losing rounds. It's a tough thing to find where he goes. I don't begrudge Dana for the responsible. What would him and Dustin be fighting for? I do start to begrudge that it was Colby's 3rd idea in 5 days, and all of them got told no. Well, nobody's challenging him, and Colby's not looking to just go after anything. He's a main event guy. He wants a sold-out house. He's earned that. I mean, he sold his soul for this thing, right? The gimmick is so far off the rails that everybody must just decide we don't like him. We're not going to give him anything he wants. Well, come on, he gets something.
I do think with Colby, I'm all about him getting paid. The Dustin Poirier's a super fight. The Izzy's a super fight. I'm all about those super fights. I like when guys get paid the most amount of money, get the most eyeballs on them. Colby deserves it. He's beaten everybody not named Kamaru Usman. If he were to fight Khamzat, and obviously we're going to find out a lot about Khamzat when he fights Gilbert Burns, and I have my thoughts on that, and you know the stories about Khamzat. How do you think Colby would match up against Khamzat? I think it's a very tough fight for Colby stylistically.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, momentum's real. In all sports, momentum is real. There is nobody with the wind in his back right now as Chimaev. I do think that's real. Now, between the two of them, what we've seen, we have not seen Khamzat deal with adversity. Yep. That we have no reason to believe he can't deal with it, but he hasn't proved it yet. We have no reason to believe that Khamzat could not enter the 5-round club, but he hasn't yet. Colby has. I just think there's a couple of things that if we're going to be fair with the rankings, I think the rankings do have it right. I think it showed the respect to the guy that they got this close versus the guy who's brand new and only did 2 fights in the division against unranked opponents. I do see what you see. I am not part of dismissing Chimaev. I think there's something real there, but when you do come down to the really hard matchups, and I say this as a wrestler, as a guy that likes to get somebody and take him down, seeing that that's what Hoswell's likes to do, I think putting him against Kamaru's hard. Kamaru's a national champion in that very sport. Put him with Colby Covington, who is 5th in the Division I ranks. I think that it's very hard. Those are the appropriate matches, but if Colby is to get to that, let's go back to what Dana did say when he dismissed the Poirier fight. What are we going to do? What's this about? What's it for? Great, but Colby needs to get that answer. If he's going to go in there and do this heavy lifting against a Chimaev, he needs to have an answer to that question. What is this for? Because there's ways that Colby returns to a world title fight and even a world championship. Those ways just involve Kamaru Usman no longer having the belt.
Yeah, and Kamaru's talking about fighting Canelo and doing that stuff, and he has the Leon Edwards fight. So I'm with Colby, man. I don't have, he's like, what are we doing? I'm throwing all this mud at the wall. Hopefully something sticks. You keep shooting it down. It sounds like he just needs to be told, all right, we're waiting for the winner of Gilbert, Khamzat, or Muhammad and Vicente Luque. You're going to get one of those guys, But if I'm Colby, a Vicente Luque Muhammad fight doesn't do a ton for me, especially at the level he's at. Again, I keep going back to it. The winner of Khamzat and Gilbert Burns, to me, makes the most sense, especially for Colby. But again, if the plan is, if all Colby cares about is getting another title shot to Kamaru Usman, it's going to go through Khamzat. I really think so. So if I would be willing to bet, again, Colby better than I do, and I love Colby. This. When I was in Miami on tour, me and Colby got together. I absolutely adore the guy. I think he's such a good person. What you guys see on camera is not Colby. He's obviously come up with this gimmick and it works because you guys pay to watch him lose. So he's getting the laugh there. But I do think for him, if he does want the title shot, it's going to go through Khamzat. I think he'd be willing to take that shot if the UFC tells him, if Dana goes, all right, dude, if Khamzat does what we think is going to happen against Gilbert Burns, you're going to fight Khamzat and you can get another title shot. It's the only way you can get another title shot. I think he'd be willing to take that.
And I agree with you. I think it's going to take something like that, some kind of creativity within the negotiation of, hey, Dana, I heard what you said. What does this mean? Tell me what it means if I beat Chimaev. You don't think I'm going to beat him. You're trying to build him. I'll take the risk. I agree with you. I just think he needs to get it stated ahead of time. It's still a hard path to get back to Usman. And frankly, even if the bosses say, look, this is the number one contenders, I do think Usman's opinion matters. And if Usman's to go, look, Colby's the hardest fight I've ever had. I barely got away with it. I did it again. I didn't want to, but I did. And I got away with it twice. I'm not fighting him again. I think we would listen to that. I mean, if I was to put myself in the shoes of Usman, there are some close ones. In sport, you go out and take those risks. But if you get a guy in your rear view, he's in your rear view. I mean, in all fairness, I think there's a conversation. I think if you're Colby, you're probably crossing your fingers, one, to find a path like you and I just laid out where at least the opportunity exists, but two, that somebody gets that belt off of Kamaru, or that Kamaru's hand injury, just by example, it doesn't heal in time and they bring in an interim championship. I think that those are more likely paths back to a championship fight. It's just hard when you've already done it twice and you didn't split in this sport's history. It's hard to get number three.
I feel for Colby because, he's going for these big fights and no one's really biting, especially your boss. Dana White's like, we're good on that, man. Those go nowhere. But, I don't think Colby just wants to wait around, for these other contenders to get their stuff together and, be good opponents. Outside that, I thought with the Coleman event, Dos Anjos, obviously Dos Anjos Fiziev would have been a fantastic fight. Doesn't happen. So Dos Anjos takes another short notice fight. It shouldn't have been 5 rounds. I think with Dos Anjos, for him, with the Fiziev, he goes, I'm good, man. I'm good. That's in the rear view. We've tried doing it twice now. It's not happening. I liked his call out of McGregor or Makhachev. I think those would be great fights for him. I just don't know, again, what the UFC wants to do with Dos Anjos.
Well, what an incredible game of chicken. I mean, Makhachev calls out RDA, puts one stipulation that the weight class has to be 170. RDA says, okay, and Makhachev doesn't show up. I mean, that's a win. On the playground, right? The best general never fires a shot. They just align their troops and make the other side back down. That's a win for RDA. Then RDA goes into this fight. Look, I don't like the 5-round idea. I don't like it anywhere. I don't like it in main events. I don't like it in championship fights. I came through the era where we in MMA were trying to compare our sports to others, where the Super Bowl isn't 5 quarters just because it's a championship game. The gold medal for the 100-yard dash doesn't become 103 yards because the championship's on the line. I've never fully understood that. I also see commissions, and I get that a commission's number one interest is commerce, but they hang their hat to get taxpayer dollars on fighters' safety. Nothing would make the sport safer than putting a guy out there for less time. So I just don't love that concept. I don't love that that fight went 5 rounds. Nobody wanted to be out there less than RDA. And if you go look at the 5th round where it looked as though his opponent was surviving, RDA quit fighting.
Yes.
RDA was trying to run out the clock and help that guy. When he did touch him, it was no faster than this. Now, Moicano started throwing some heat, and RDA had to defend himself, but RDA didn't even want to hit him anymore. And I'm going, where's the adult in the room? We got the best referee in the business when Big John isn't doing it. We got a fantastic doctor. They've had not one but 2 conversations and still didn't stop it. That should be assigned to the corner man. And Brendan, I don't hang my hat on this whole let a fighter show his heart. A fighter having heart and a cornerman having no heart do not have to be the same thing. Get your guy out of there when he can no longer win, not when he can no longer fight. When your guy can no longer win, get him to the back. It's your job.
I think it's a problem in our sport. I think boxing is a little more leniency with that, where they will throw in the towel. With MMA, especially in the UFC, it's very rare you see that. I think it's a huge ego thing, and it's just, the cornerman never wants to take that responsibility. But as a cornerman, that's your number one job is to protect that fighter. It's a really kind of a black eye. I think a lot more cornermen could really do their fighters a service by throwing the towel. Live to fight another day. So I do like with RDA. And before he came on, I was breaking down what I think's next for certain guys, and a name keeps popping up. A name with obviously Masvidal's lost 3 in a row now, but he's the third highest contract ever in UFC history, which I'd love to know the exact details of, because guys made a ton of money. I know guys who make tons of money. So when they say third highest, I'm like, holy shit, that's a ton of money. But when you do get paid like that, you're going to have to take big fights. The UFC is going to have to get a return on their investment. So you're not fighting young lions anymore. Masvidal is going to get these blockbuster fights. A fight that makes a lot of sense for Masvidal and RDA would be Conor McGregor. He's been out. I really don't see Conor coming back to 55. You look how juicy he is right now. He looks, bigger than he's ever been. I think the cut could be tough for him. I think a Masvidal fight makes a lot. It checks every single box for both guys. I could see that for Masvidal. I could see it for RDA too. And again, before you answer, I think for Conor, if you're a Conor fan, which I'm a huge Conor fan, even, with his crazy antics he's been doing, I do think those are winnable fights for him. When he called out Makhachev, I went, that you don't want that. That's not what we want to do here. You're not going to get a win there. RDA, I could see a win. Masvidal, I could see a win. Tough fights, but winnable.
Sure. I fully agree with you. And just to remind the audience, the entire Conor experiment at 170 was predicated on Dana White going out to dinner in Beverly Hills and some guy jumping in front of him with a camera who happened to work for TMZ. So uploaded on TMZ, they ask about Masvidal, and they asked Dana, would you ever put him with Conor McGregor? Dana said no. Masvidal's too big for him. Well, that upset Conor. Conor took that as a challenge, and his very next fight, which happened to be against Cowboy Cerrone, was at 170 pounds. The whole reason Conor came up to 170 was to dispute the fact that Dana said Masvidal was too big. So you got the biggest star in the sport, Conor McGregor, who wants to fight the second biggest star in the sport in George Masvidal. I'm with you. I even think we've got a date. I think International Fight Week, which is supposed to be the biggest fight of the year, I think that we've got everything right. Conor puts out that picture on Instagram that you referenced. He claims to weigh 193 pounds. He looked like he weighed 193 pounds. Go partway down, jump in there at 170. I am with you that that's the fight to make. But, Brendan, we're the only ones talking about it. I can't believe that more people aren't banging for that, including Conor, including Masvidal. So let's say we don't get it. If anybody knows how to do the sport, the punches and the kicks and the grappling and the conditioning, it's RDA. If anybody doesn't understand the business of the sport, it's RDA. He's not demanding these things. If you go look at the lifting that RDA's done, literally, if you go to SureDog right now, type in RDA's name under Fight Finder. If you look at who he fought and when he fought them, he's gone through two divisions, every champion and every contender at 55 and 70. It is remarkable the work that this guy's put in, but he doesn't make these demands. He seems to go with the flow. A lot of guys do that way.
He's too nice.
He's too nice about it. I think he needs to quit being so nice. I think the mere fact that he backed down Makhachev and defeated Moicano in 1 week should scream volumes. He's a main event fighter. He deserves a big fight. Now he's got to play the game to figure out how he gets it.
I think for RDA, because he is so nice, and I do, we again, before he came out, I was saying RDA has, as far as strength of schedule, has the best ever in UFC history. 55, 70, by far the best resume you could possibly have.
Ever.
He's going to need a guy in Conor who calls the shots, right? They're going to. It's not like they're going to come to Conor and go, all right, RDA or Masvidal. Conor's going to make that decision. So I think if Conor's team gets wind of RDA saying that, the only way this happens is if Conor gets wind and starts promoting this thing, asking for the fight. But again, as much as I love RDA, and he treated me so nice when I fought Nogueira in Brazil, he was literally the only Brazilian that would take me to places where they wouldn't poison my food. So I'm forever grateful to him. But I think that to me, it's a no-brainer. Again, you say nobody's talking about it, but you and I are. It's Conor Masvidal, International Fight Week. That thing's it's going to do gangbuster numbers, man.
Oh, it's massive. I mean, that is the fight to make. And I feel as though people forget. That's why I took the time to bore you with the timeline of that story. But that's literally what happened. Dana was going to dinner. Dude jumps out. Dana takes time to answer him. Turns out dude works for TMZ. Conor hears about it, loses his mind, and comes and fights at 170. I mean, that fight is all but done. Now let's try to make the case for RDA. Because one thing that RDA has on his side is he's got pictures worth 1,000 words. He's got the photo shoot of him and Conor. Don't forget, those two were supposed to fight. Right. RDA ended up getting hurt, right? And he ends up getting pulled out of it. But that fight was promised to him. For him to come back and claim what was once already his, I think that it's fair. He needs to tell that story. It's not going to be simple. You got to get Conor's attention. Everybody comes at Conor. And there's nothing that Conor likes more than to be challenged and to dismiss a guy. So you really got to be strategic with the call out. You got to know how you're going to do it. Once you get met with rejection, you got to hit him again and again and again. But if you insult Conor the right way, he is like any excuse me, like any wounded animal, he's going to come out and fight you. I just think it's a tricky game. And even if it's not Conor for RDA, I think we can all agree it needs to be something big. I'm all of a sudden interested in Islam versus RDA. What is it that Islam saw that made him go back on his own idea? I'm interested in that. I got to fight for a world title against John Jones because that happened. I didn't belong in there with John Jones in all fairness, and I knew it ahead of time, but John turned me down in the public's eye. The public's, whoa, what does John see? I mean, I'm just speaking from firsthand knowledge. It's a real thing. When a guy says no, we go, well, wait a minute, why not? I think that RDA's got big fights out there, but Brendan, to your point, he's got to quit being so nice.
And here's the problem with him being so nice. Be careful what you ask for, because if you don't build up that Conor fight, you're going to get Makhachev. And that is a nightmare of a matchup, man. There's nobody higher on Makhachev and Khamzat than me. Though I ride their hairy nuts like you wouldn't believe, Chael. I love both those guys. I don't see a chink in their armor, especially with Makhachev. Obviously has faced tougher competition, but for RDA, it's like, hey man, if you don't get on the bike here and start screaming for Conor, you're gonna get Makhachev, and it's not gonna be pretty, dude. So you better get on it.
Well, and Brennan, there was one that went under the radar, but it was last week. If there's anything we know about Khabib, it's that he's a man of his word. If he says he's going to do it, he does it, which included retirement. If he says it, it's done. Khabib came out and said, I want Conor to fight Islam, and if Conor loses to Islam, I'll come out of retirement and avenge it against Conor. I mean, that's really big news, and that's a really big piece of the story. But once Khabib says it, he really does mean it. I mean, I think from the world of promotion, there's all the story that we need. And you can say whatever you want about Conor McGregor. He is not afraid to fight. He will take that fight with Islam if somebody asks him to.
Agreed. Again, terrible idea, especially if you're a Conor fan. It's just, we need to get a win here, man. We got to get a freaking win. It's not going to be Makhachev, dude. That's not what you want to do with your career, man. It just seems like a bad idea. And also, I agree with you. Once Khabib says something, that's it, man. He says it, he'll do it. But he knows that Makhachev is a complete nightmare for Conor. So the chance of Conor beating Makhachev is not high. So I think him saying that, he's just trying to get his boy eyeballs. But also for the UFC, it's no matter what they decide to do with Conor, it's basically a win-win for the UFC. Because Conor Makhachev, even if Makhachev wins, now you have all the eyeballs on Makhachev. You know, he's Khabib's, basically little brother, and it's going to be a huge pay-per-view. You put him with Masvidal, the UFC makes all the money in the world. But the whole thing here depends how much juice they see left in Conor, because you got to be strategic about it. And the best fight for Conor, the most winnable fight, and again, none of them are easy, but if you're a Conor fan, the winnable fight, probably Masvidal. If you had to guess, maybe Masvidal, it's a no-brainer to me, man.
Yeah, Conor could definitely win that fight. I love the breakdown because Masvidal is going to cope and stand with him. He's not going to try to double cross and get a takedown. And frankly, his wrestling isn't good enough that he can just throw Conor down. Conor's tough to take down. Ask Chad Mendez. Ask Khabib. I agree with you. I like that fight. And another one, I don't know that I would predict for you that it's going to happen, but Dana has not completely thrown water on the idea of Conor coming in right against Charles Oliveira. And again, with Oliveira's wrestling or lack thereof, Conor's big left hand, I mean, you could start to break it down and start to see ways. I agree with you. The Makhachev, there's nothing to see here. We're going to have fun. We're going to have a build-up. We're going to have 5 rounds going to Islam. But there are still some real matches out there for McGregor. I'd like to know where he is. I'd love to know what his motivation is. They say a rich man can't fight, but Floyd proved that to be wrong. And, Conor's following that path now, too. If Conor is truly motivated and truly wants to be a champion of the world, that would mean something to me. I would want to hear that. I didn't love the way he prepared for his last couple of training camps. I didn't love the fact that he left Ireland, that's got the gym and all of his coaches, and went to another country for seclusion. I just didn't understand it. I didn't think he looked great against Dustin Poirier, but there's still big things out there, and I got to be real critical just to say that. And we're also proving, the one thing that Colby and Jorge Masvidal, who just sold 15,000 tickets 6 days in advance of how the heavyweights championship sold tickets, the one thing they had in common, Brennan, is they're both coming off losses. The one thing they had in common is between the two of them, they hadn't won a fight in the last 3. Boxing doesn't make losing acceptable. MMA, it is. And it is because our fans understand nobody gets built, nobody gets a free ride. It's iron on top of iron every night. You're just not likely to go undefeated in that way. But it's a larger part of the story. The guys that you and I are sitting here discussing, admitting that we want to headline the biggest card of the year, which is International Fight Week, haven't won a fight between them since like 2018. We don't care. That's the fight to make. Masvidal versus McGregor. Come on.
But I think you brought up a great point. For Conor, it's like, what is his motivation? If it's still money, which would be unbelievable if it is. It has to be more than money. But if it is money, Masvidal's the cash cow here. That's the biggest fight. But if it's to be a world champion, then none of, the RDA, the Masvidals, the Makhachevs, none of this matters, because if it's not about money, it's just getting that title back, and being a world champion. He's interested in is Charles Oliveira. That's all he cares about. Sure. So that would be the fight. But again, we haven't heard from Conor, but if his motivation is just to be a world champion, none of this other stuff matters what we're talking about.
Sure. If he could get a guarantee of a number one contenderships, I hear you. Look, I like the BMF belt. I loved when they brought it out. I think it's opportunity. I'm one of the few guys, I like the interim title. It just creates opportunity. I want him to resurrect the BMF. If the belt wasn't on the line, so it didn't go to Usman like some people think, it doesn't belong to Covington. The title's got to be on the line. Ric Flair used to get pinned 1, 2, 3, but he was still the champion because the title wasn't on the line. I mean, right? The interest is in the details here. I think they bring that back. Conor versus George, BMF title up for grabs. I'm in
too. But would you be open to a Masvidal Nate Diaz rematch for BMF? That does nothing for me.
I like that. And you want to know a story that was getting out there, and then again it fizzled, but was Nick Diaz, that Nick was going to go against Masvidal. That was the rage right after. That would have worked, and Nick has been radio silent. Quite frankly, Nick looked a lot better against Robbie than I think Nick knew. When Nick sat down and said, I had enough, I'd be curious. I never checked the scorecards. That is public, but I had it at 1 apiece. I thought that it was 1-1, and we're going to the third. I thought Nick looked really good, but Nick has been radio silent. Dana made one comment on him and said, I don't know if Nick's ever going to fight again. It seemed like Nick, who'd been removed for a period of time, which is why he was a little bit rusty, wouldn't want another break. He'd want to get right back in there. And I thought maybe there would be some opportunity for Masvidal versus Big Brother.
See, I love that fight, but I also thought that Nick didn't want to fight. That's what I have no clue. I don't have an into the Diaz camp, but from the rumors I heard was Nick's not really interested in fighting. He took that fight to pay off some loan or some crazy thing like that. Who knows what's true? But if that is true, that's why you're seeing this long layoff, and he's probably not coming back.
That would make a level of sense. I was very light on that idea, just the work that he went through just to get back. I thought he did Instagram, and he was looking great, and he did a couple of triathlons. So I thought, well, when a guy's sharp and a guy wants to come back, even if it is for the money, I'm okay with that. But what's better than one paycheck is 2 paychecks. But the mere fact that he's taken a break and been very quiet, maybe that's the true rumor. Maybe he just doesn't want to do this anymore. I'm okay with it. Larger point that I'm trying to prove with you is there's a lot of really good options right now. They don't all have to be world championship related. Our sport's 3 biggest stars, Conor McGregor, followed by Masvidal, followed by anybody with the last name of Diaz, they're not championship guys. They have not won in a period of time. Point. Our audience decided we don't care. These are the guys we like in this order. So any part of that parody that you can put them together makes good sense to me.
Agree, brother. I know you got to get going because you have a ESPN show, so I'll let you get out of here soon. I just want to ask you a few more questions, and you let me know. Just Please. Cut me off whenever you want. With Francis Ngannou, I had him on Food Truck recently and Flashback Fight Nights. Right after his win, he came to the Thick Boy Studios. How do you see that going down? In a perfect world, I would love for Francis and the UFC to figure out a deal. I know from very close sources with the Tyson Fury team, they want that fight. That fight's happening. That is good as done. He's gonna fight, I think, Dillian White. He says he's gonna retire. And then people go, what about Francis? He goes, I'm retiring from boxing. To me, that's not a boxing fight. That's something else, but that's happening. I know for a fact, talking to Francis' team, who I'm very close with, and Tyson's team, that fight, you are going to get that fight. To me, that fight is going to be so much bigger, so much more special if the UFC machine is involved, like the Conor Floyd Mayweather fight. So I would love for Francis to figure out a deal with the UFC where they're going to play ball. And it doesn't sound like he's asking for a crazy amount of money either. I think he's just asking for more money, which is, every fighter wants more money. I would just love for them to figure out a common ground where he fights John Jones, really John Jones is the fight form at heavyweight. And then also the UFC and Tyson Fury in cahoots when they do fight. I don't want to see a world where Francis goes out, signs with somebody else, or he doesn't have the backing of the UFC and fights Tyson Fury. I don't want that. I'm too big of a UFC fan.
I see that too. It's very hard to be mad at Francis in this. One thing Francis has done is he's remained polite. He hasn't called names. He hasn't raised his voice. He shared with us, the audience, the intricacies of his contract, which was none of our business, but now he let everybody know, here's where I'm at. I'm going to renegotiate. Here's what I'm going to ask for. It's real hard to be mad at Francis. Now, I don't see a value in Francis Ngannou going over in boxing. I don't see a value in Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather. I see a value with a lot of commas and zeros in the city reigning UFC world champion going over and doing something else. I also think it's a big mistake by those guys to not make it boxing. Tyson Fury's come out and said, we're going to do it in 4-ounce gloves and we're going to change all of the rules. Well, that becomes a problem. You and I, who are on the internet, we're big influencers and big voices in this sport. We can cover it if we want, but what do you do at Sports Center? What does Jim Rome do? What does Dan Le Batard do that are talking to the audience? I mean, what do you call that? If we're not calling it boxing and we're not calling it MMA, what are we trying to tell the fans that they're going to go and do? And also, what's on the line? There's got to be something at risk. If Tyson Fury wants to put his beautiful record up for grabs, that's a storyline. But if we're going to call it a different sport, and regardless of the outcome, it doesn't reflect the sport that Tyson's dedicated his life to, I just think it's weird. I don't know why they would. If you change one rule, you've now changed the sport. I think you got to put it in the gloves, of which Francis isn't going to care. Tyson Fury comes from a sport where they negotiate the ounce of the gloves. They negotiate if they're made in China or if they got horsehair or if they were made in Mexico. They watch the opponent put it on. We don't do that at MMA. We don't give a goddamn. You set up the rules and we'll come fight you. It is the major difference between us and boxers, and I'm not sure that Tyson knows that. So don't change anything. Keep it in a 17-by-17 ring. Keep it 10 rounds, 3 minutes with a 1 minute break. Keep it boxing. Keep it a sport. Don't go make up something. If you're going to make something up, you guys might as well go arm wrestle. We don't care. Something has to be at risk. And I do think that Francis needs to do it as the UFC champion, not just as Francis Ngannou, a guy with a 0-0 boxing record.
I agree 100%. And I also think that's where the influence of Dana White and the UFC would come into play and go, no. We're not doing this weird shit with this weird rules and different gloves. I would imagine, no one's better at promotional entertainment than Dana White. And he knows if you make this thing confusing for the casuals, what is it? It's the former UFC champion fighting in 4-ounce gloves inside. What is it, in a cage? What are we doing here? You're going to miss out on the casuals, and that's where they're going to make their big payday. So that's another reason I would love for them to figure out a deal. I really do. I hope it works out, and I think it is going to work out. Hopefully, rather sooner than later. But the big thing is the comeback of John Jones, and it sounds like, depending where they're at with Francis, John's going to probably fight Stipe. That's the rumor. I don't know. You know more than I do. You work for him. But, I think John Stipe makes a lot of sense. Are you a fan of that fight for John?
Big fan. Big fan. I think the only question we're figuring out is, are we fighting for the interim championship or the undisputed championship? If Francis really is going to lock in and not come back, we might have to take the belt off of him. I mean, I think in all fairness, the other side is Francis just fought and he's hurt. Everybody else gets a period of time. You get to rehab. You get to talk, not just because you say certain things to the media, they take the belt off you. But I do feel like that's the delay. Stipe has been oddly quiet and John Jones has been oddly quiet. Generally, when that happens, it's because a deal's already done. And they've been told, don't say anything, we're going to release this. If I was to predict for you with my limited information that I just laid out, what the holdup is, I think that's it. We don't know to make the announcement if it's for the interim or if it's for the undisputed strap. But that's the fight to make. I got one source in it, which is Stipe's wife. She and I are pen pals. She told me in no uncertain terms, we're here in John Jones and we're prepared to fight him. I also asked her, by the way, one thing that Stipe said after he fought Francis Ngannou, he was seeing the path back to his championship is going through Francis and be a true trilogy fight. They both split. Let's go to number 3. He said, I'm going to put on 20 pounds. I'm going to put it on the right way, though. I'm going to put on 20 pounds of muscle. Stipe Miocic at 255 is a very different Stipe than the 236 that he fought Francis at. I like that idea. Now, I'm told that Stipe has already succeeded. His wife said he's got on the right size. He's very lean. So a 255 Stipe versus a 240 John Jones, man, I'm in for that all day. I like that matchup.
I love it. I it's too close to break down right now. I'm usually hesitant just from my own experience when the guys put on weight. They get slower, their cardio's not as good. And maybe for Stipe's like, I'm going there to knock guys out, so I'm putting on more weight. John said he wants to get up to 280, put on all this weight. When I hear that, I flinch a little bit because I'm like, John, your advantages at heavyweight is your fighting IQ is going to be second to none, your creativity, and then also your speed and quickness. If you get big like all the other heavyweights, you're just another guy, my man. Like we don't want to take away what's going to make you special at heavyweight. So I don't like it when guys put on weight. But I do think Stipe at the latter part of his career, it makes a little sense there. But I would absolutely be stoked if that fight comes to fruition. Stipe versus John, sign me up all freaking day, man. Take my money.
Yeah, and as you said, we've got a lot of time to talk here, but I don't know if a weigh-in would ever be more relevant than between those two, because I'm with you. I think that John Jones is a rare talent. I think John Jones, 220, 225, when he cut to 205, I think it was enough. I think he could have picked apart a lot of guys. I think he could have used that speed, his endurance. Doesn't work overly hard by reputation, but boy, he never gets tired on fight night. I thought those were his advantages. He wanted to change his physiology, and that wasn't from a physical standpoint. It was just psychologically. John thought, I need to be bigger. Okay, I'm up for the experiment, but Stipe Miocic got so small. He weighed in at 231 pounds for his third fight with Daniel Cormier. That was stunning. Yeah. We all thought he went on like a vegan diet or he had changed something. How are you so small? He finally answered the question. He said, none of those things. He said, I'm eating all of the same foods. We're just working really hard. This is just what I weigh. All right, I'll accept that. But to remind you, he wants to get back to 255. When he did some of his best work, he was 248. So I do think that bigger Stipe is a better Stipe. And if the entire allure to John Jones at this weight class is how can he do against a bigger man, we need to make sure the man is bigger. And right now, with John claiming on Instagram he's 242 and Stipe's last fight went at 236, right now we don't fulfill that. John's still the bigger man. So I really am interested in the weight of both guys.
Yeah, I think too, again, to wrap this up, with John, I've trained with John. I've seen John spar some of the greatest heavyweights that we've ever seen inside that UFC octagon in a Shark Tank round. Big boys, man. And absolutely manhandle him. Didn't lose a single round. Shark Tank. He stays in. World-class heavyweights coming in, him tossing people around, man. So that's why I'm like, you don't need to do all this, dude. You're right. You're good to go right now. Signed, sealed, delivered. You're ready to go be UFC heavyweight champion right now. And then you win that fight, and that's where I think France's team needs to realize if John is who he says he is and who I believe he is, outside all the outside shenanigans, which is a whole nother story. But if John gets his shit together and beats Stipe, which is tough, but if he does, John Jones Francis, if him and Stipe fight for the interim belt, France has the real belt. John Jones Francis, dude, we're going Sizzler. And then so not only do you have John Jones Francis, but then you also got the Fury fight. So if I'm the UFC and I'm Francis, the UFC, how much freaking money are we going to make off Francis re-signing with us? Let's pay him what he wants, and then also that Fury fight. I mean, dude, you're talking about history, dude. I'm all for it. I hope they figure it out. I really do. I'll get you. Go ahead.
I think you're right, and I think Francis can get there. I'm just wondering the order of it. Like, let's say Francis exhausts his contract and he does the Fury business. If he loses to Fury, he's hard to bring back, right? I mean, people are still going to view that as a loss if he beats Fury. And every promoter, Vince McMahon does this more than any promoter. It's why he let Brock go over there. What happens if he loses? Okay, but what happens if Brock wins? And I got him under contract. So if Francis was to beat Fury and then return, I mean, right, Francis can still get his way. It's a risky game. It's a little too rich for my blood, and I'm a gambler. But it's possible, Brendan. It could happen.
Yeah, never say never. But, man, that is a tough hill to climb there, man. You got a big right hand. You don't think Fury's seen that? He just dismantled Deontay Wilder, who has a giant right hand and is a world champion boxer. So you're coming from the UFC. You think you're going to land that? Hopefully he does. And Tyson Fury is my favorite fighter, whether it's MMA or boxing. I absolutely love Fury. I'll end on this. Obviously it's a dark way to end our conversation. I love you, but with Cain Velasquez, it's just such a tragic story, man. It's such a tragic story. And I talked to a lawyer about this because, I reached out to DC and Josh Thompson are very close with Cain Velasquez. I said, how can I help, man? What can I do? What do you need me to raise money? You need my lawyer. I have big, high-profile lawyers. They're based out of LA. They work with the biggest names in the business. How can I help, man? Let me know what I can do. And so I talked to my lawyer, and he goes, this is a very black and white situation. Clearly, obviously Cain's UFC alumni and you love the guy and stuff like that because the law doesn't care. It's very black and white. The premeditated stuff where he had days to think about this and put together a plan, that's what's going to screw him. So you have to hope it goes to a jury because obviously, child of his or a family member was molested by this man, you have to hope it goes to a jury and they have compassion and they give him a lesser sentence. You got to pray to God it goes to a jury. It's just the whole situation is just heartbreaking, man. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
It's tough. This would be a shot in the dark. I don't predict for you this would happen, but in the best case scenario, the family and the person who was accused, who says I didn't do it. I mean, we kind of do owe it to him. He says he didn't do it. He's been convicted of nothing. Cain shot the wrong guy. It's hard to make a case he shot the wrong person, not to mention it was in public where those bullets could have gone anywhere, and it turns out our friend Velasquez ain't that good at aiming. So, but imagine a scenario where the guy who was accused, the family of the guy who was accused, comes in to court and testifies for Cain. They say, look, we didn't do this, but we understand the fury. We love children too. This was a misunderstanding. Please go light on him. And you have a sympathetic jury. I mean, I'm saying a lot of buts right now. I'm saying a lot of ifs. It's a hard spot. It is pretty black and white. I'd like to make a case for Cain. The best or least that I could do is to tell the world what a nice man this is, what a calm man this is, regardless of what you saw on television. This was a bad moment. Brendan, if I could go back, if I had a magic wand to go back and this never happened, that would be best, because he shot a guy or shot at a guy who is not yet convicted, who says he's innocent. We got to give him that. And secondly, he hit the wrong guy. It's a tough spot, Brendan.
Yeah, and to your point, and I'm just, again, I'm not a lawyer. This will surprise you guys. I'm not a lawyer, but is there a world where Cain could offer a settlement to the family? Or because this is above, are we past that? Can he offer a settlement? Yeah, we're past that. When you
We're past that, but there could be some room to talk. If somebody there understood and goes, look, your mind was a mess. Let me explain to you what happened for right. I mean, sometimes you do get people that are reasonable. Most times people just go, this happened to me and I'm coming back for justice. But some people are reasonable. Maybe Cain could do a settlement in exchange. Come in and tell this to the judge. Hey, we understand why he had lost his mind. He operated on information he had. We don't agree with that information, but we do understand if he believed it, he did what he thought a father could do. I mean, in this kind of a situation, only a jury is going to let Cain see the light of day in the next decade. He's probably going to sit. Yeah,
because premeditated minimum sentence, 15 years, my man. You just hate to see it. You hate to see it because, I don't know if it was his son, daughter, whatever, family member, but now that child has grown up without a father because of these actions. So, it's just a lose-lose situation, man. And, I know that.
And I do think you can start to work backwards, by the way. I mean, right now he's at premeditated murder. If Cain could convince somebody, I shot exactly where I meant to hit him. I never intended to kill him. It's assault with a deadly weapon. It's not a lot better. I'm just sharing for you, in the world of law, we can start to work down. And I don't know that he has to sit on premeditated. He certainly did an attempt to kill the guy who he shot the wrong guy. Well, you can start to work backwards where this was reckless. This was a deadly weapon. This isn't going to be great, but it's not what we're sitting on today.
Yep. I just, I pray for the guy and I hope it works out, man. You hate to see it. Chael, I love you, man. What do you got now? You got ESPN stuff? What are you just chatting about? Colby?
I did ESPN. I'm going to do Teddy Atlas's show. I got invited. By the way, you paid me a nice compliment at the beginning of the show. You said Josh Barnett said some nice things about me. That made me feel wonderful. I just wanted to give a shout out. Josh Barnett, top 3 fighter ever. If you discuss the top 3 heavyweights ever and you don't put Josh Barnett on your list, I feel you lose credibility. That meant a lot to me that he said something nice. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Josh loves you. Matt Mitrione loves you. And have you had Josh on any of your shows?
I've had Josh on, yes. When I very first started a podcast, he came on very early. He's such an interesting
smart guy.
Yeah, he's getting over to pro wrestling. Like, he's really diverse. He's a curious guy. He's a great mind. Sometimes I feel that he gets excluded from our community, and I don't know why, because he's one of the most knowledgeable guys within the entire sport. And when he starts to share his ideas and visions, man, the guy's sharp.
I love Josh Barnett, man. I love you too, brother. And next time, let's do this in person, man. I know you're swamped and we got busy schedules, but let's figure it out.
I'm never too busy for you, and I love you too. Thank you, Brendan. Talk soon.
Chael Sonnen. There you have it. One of my favorite people on the planet, Chael Sonnen. None better than Chael to break down anything when it comes to the fight game. He also has been in the biggest fights of all time with Anderson Silva, John Jones, Nate Marquardt, to just name a few. I absolutely love Chael Sonnen. And also, he's a Colby Covington expert. That's his boy, so wanted him on here after a big Colby Covington fight. And he made some good points, man. Colby's kind of in this weird position, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. It really is. So shout out to Chael Sonnen. Go subscribe to his podcast. To me, he's the most entertaining, best doing it in our sport. So go like and subscribe to Chael Sonnen's YouTube channel and his podcast. And the guy's crushing. I absolutely love him. And that's the show. That's it, my man. Few housekeeping notes. I will be in Nashville, Tennessee at Zany's this Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All shows are damn near sold out. Friday night late show, we have a good amount of tickets left, so get on those right now. Nashville, those shows will sell out. Can't add more shows. I just can't do it. So get your tickets right now at thiccboy.com. And then this Wednesday, I'll be at the Improv, Schaub and Friends, Jeff Dye, Trevor Wallace, Chris D'Elia, Brian Callen, Chappelle Lacey. The boys are all there. One night, one show only, 8 p.m., Hollywood Improv. That's this Wednesday. Then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Nashville. I end the month in Chicago at the Schaumburg Improv. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Chicago. So get your tickets at thiccboy.com. Check out the recent food truck on Thick Boy with Michael Chandler. And then we also got the Calabasas Fight Companion with the War Master himself, Josh Barnett and Matt Mitrione. Go check all that out at thiccboy.com. Like, subscribe, do your thing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Shout out to Chael Sonnen. Love you guys. Stay safe. Stay thick.